We welcome you back to News Talk. Coming your way in just a few moments here, the misuse of 911 and the deadly consequences that can and sometimes do result. Right now, though, let's get back to our conversation with Northern Virginia Congressman Don Beyer. Phone lines open for those of you watching in the 11 a.m. hour on this Monday. Grateful to have you with us, and let's make this an open conversation where you can pose a question or make a comment about any of the big issues of the day. We love doing that, and we hope you'll take part in the conversation. Just dial the number on the screen. We've posted it, and you can dial it, 703-387-1020. Again, for our folks watching in the 11 a.m. hour, that's when we're live. That's when we can take your calls. To the phones we'll go at 703-387-1020 in the moments that follow. Let's pick up on the conversation we were having a moment ago about the Hill agenda, the House under new leadership. Paul Ryan, someone highly regarded, well known for his long service on the Ways and Means Committee. He was Mitt Romney's nominee, of course, in 2012. And we'll see how things go in terms of the passing of legislation, what he does with the Freedom Caucus, what his relationship is with Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. If you had to speculate now or place a guess, Congress does so little now. You're on vacation or you're out all the time. Little gets done when you're here. Will this next period be more productive?
Well, I think we need to celebrate the last few weeks because we did get a deal on the debt ceiling that takes us through the next presidential election until the spring of 2017. So that's terrific.
No more crisis on that.
No more crisis on that, which is wonderful. And, that's good for business. We need that kind of confidence. We got a highway bill passed. Now, we still have to do the conference committee with the Senate, but it looks like for the first time in many, many years, we're going to have new money for highways, 10% more than we had before. The debate is whether it's 3 years or 6 years, but it's better than we had. I'm particularly tickled because I was able to get an amendment to the highway bill that turns regulation of tow truck companies, the predatory towing, back to state and local governments. It's essentially been unregulated for 20 years. So this is going to help a lot of consumers living in Northern Virginia and around the country.
Sorry, your expectation being that localities will take advantage of some of this new authority they get to protect consumers and reduce some of the craziness we've seen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The interesting thing, Bruce, is in a 1994 act, they gave responsibility to regulate tow truck companies to the federal government. And then in 1996, they eliminated the body that was supposed to do it. So they've been unregulated all the time. So if you complain to Arlington or Alexandria right now, they say basically, hey, it's the federal government's responsibility. So this will be very good. And actually, the Republicans liked it because we were moving responsibility back to the states.
Do you happen to know, I know you weren't serving in Congress then, did they do that to give the industry kind of a free pass, or was it more?
I think it was accidental.
More of an oversight.
Yeah, the first part was making the interstate, and the second was just accidental. It was covered in some other bill.
Can you talk about what a transportation bill? Did you have another point you wanted to make?
Well, just that the real test for Paul Ryan and the efficacy of our House will come in early December, because we still haven't passed our spending bills. We did an early iteration in June. But none of them, they all had poison pills in them, eliminating Obamacare, eliminating Planned Parenthood funding, things like that. So they're never going to get signed by the president. So that face-off, getting clean funding bills for government in early December, is really the next hurdle.
And a potentially big moment, right?
Well, in a worst case, you can get a shutdown. Nobody in leadership on either party wants that, but the Ted Cruz's of the world and maybe the Freedom Caucus could demand it.
Will you be watching to see what level of Republican support Ryan needs, not to get to 218, but in a political sense? Because there are many paths to 218, the number of votes that a bill needs to get through the House and over to the Senate or conference committee. If he has 100 from the other side and 118 of yours, he's good in terms of the math, but it can be painful politics for a speaker.
Painful politics, especially with the threat of primaries. So you have a lot of, if there were secret ballots, it'd be easier, but sometimes people are afraid to vote for something that's moderate and sensible for fear that they'll have a primary from the right. And that's what he has to overcome. And I know our leadership is always saying, look, we'll be there with the votes as need be, but you have to have the right policy. As in no poison pills, no riders that are unacceptable to the vast part of the American people.
Can you talk about the benefits that can flow from a transportation bill, 3 years, 6 years, whatever it is, given the state of our crumbling roads and bridges, given the potential for job creation, et cetera?
Well, I think it's important not to overstate it. It's 10% more, so I think it's like $80 billion that we didn't have, but the backlog's $3 trillion with it. So it's not nearly enough. And the Washington Post editorial staff and many others have complained that we've yet to come back and put more real new money in. We've done things like we're selling oil from the oil reserve, we're taking away the rainy day fund from the Federal Reserve, one-time things as opposed to finding new revenue. It's been the gas tax, but I think everyone says cars get more fuel efficient, the more electric cars. That's a declining source of revenue. What's to replace it?
Sometimes people say go big or go home. Should that test be applied, or should that mantra be applied here?
Well, that's very much what we want. As Larry Summers, used to be Treasury Secretary, keeps saying, interest rates are near zero, and we have 10 million people unemployed, 5% unemployment. This is a great time to do a dramatic, $1 trillion transportation bill that would put hundreds of thousands of people to work and change the way our economy works. 70,000 bridges in need of repair or replacement, for example. We need to go big, but politics is also the art of the possible. And so far, House and Senate Republican leadership haven't found a way to go big.
I get that some of your colleagues have legitimate, heartfelt concern and objection to some of the funding formulas or ideas for funding a big trillion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar, whatever bill that you and others would like to see, and that would be doable if the funding source could be identified. So I don't trivialize or just reject out of hand some of the concern. That having been said, is there a fear, do you think, for some that if you had a big bill, and I'm not saying this is the thing that by itself lifts the economy to new heights, but is there a suspicion in the back of your mind that if we had done a transportation bill, Memorial Bridge right here is crumbling. It's ridiculous.
Two of the 6 lanes are closed.
Right, closed.
Right, indefinitely.
And I'll bet every one of your colleagues has a project in his or her district that is past the engineering point at which they're happy. The local transportation officials are happy. Is there a suspicion that if they're not doing this bill because it would boost the nation's economy at a time when Barack Obama is president?
No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think it's much more trying to figure out how to get the funding stream done. Here's the obvious things: is let's raise the gas tax, but that doesn't work because first of all, people don't like raising the gas tax, and the second of all, because this is a declining source of revenue. Everyone talks about vehicle miles traveled. Let's look at how many do a tax on cars there. That's very difficult because we have privacy concerns. We don't want to know where Bruce DuBois drove in the last year. That's a terrible thing. So it comes back to perhaps in the course of major tax reform. We have a 35% corporate income tax that needs to come down before all the corporations flee to other countries. We have a very complicated personal income tax system that really needs to be simplified. In the course of doing tax reform, we can create a funding stream for our highway and transportation needs. So it's a lot of different pieces have to come together, and hopefully that will happen in the next year.
You're bringing together some experts to talk about climate change. You've called this event Just the Facts. One could make the case, arguably, that we've had that many elements of the discussion about climate change and global warming have been not fact-free, but there's been a lot of other stuff mixed into the batter. What are you hoping to accomplish?
Well, there's so much emotion in it, and unfortunately, if you go back 6-7 years, climate change, the impact was largely accepted by Democrats and Republicans. Now it's become like, depends on which party you are, whether it's real or not. And so I'd love to get it away from politics and back to just what the science is. There was a piece in the Washington Post this morning that said, for the first time, we passed the 400 parts per billion in CO2 in the atmosphere, which is sort of one of these thresholds that mankind had never reached before. So we're going to do Thursday, November 19th, George Mason, over at Founders Hall in Arlington, 7 to 9, and we have 4 experts to come from the White House, from the EPA, from George Mason, from the Natural Resources Defense Council, and hopefully lots of citizens to come with their questions and their concerns and their opinions. And again, take it away from politics and let's just get back to what's the science and what's the science suggests that we should do.
Do you think you'll get undecided people who will hear the evidence and be swayed by it? Is it more with an eye toward this is real, this is happening, how can the world mobilize before we reach a point where coming back from the brink is difficult? Is there an agenda? I don't mean that in the negative way. Is there a goal here on your part in bringing these leaders, experts together?
Yeah, the goal will be to continue to form and shape public opinion as much as we can. I don't know if there'll be many undecided people there, but clearly, we've come a long, long way. No other nation in the world has reduced its carbon footprint in the last 7 years as much as the United States. I mean, our cars are getting 35 miles per gallon right now. There's 22 7 years ago. Now with the new clean power plant rules, we're going to have a dramatically different carbon footprint from our power plants. But we need to continue to educate the public and get them on board.
And the event is on the 19th. It's in the
Thursday.
evening, 7 to 9?
Exactly. In Arlington at George Mason.
At George Mason, you'll have a good group of experts there open to the public.
Yes, exactly.
Don Beyer represents Northern Virginia's 8th District in the U.S. House. Thank you, as always. Thank you always for your time. Great having you here.
Absolutely.
Hope you'll come back again real soon. We'll take a break here. We'll talk with ABC 7 investigator Chris Pabst and D.C. Fire Rescue Chief Gregory Dean in a moment. Keep it here.